Sally Ride did not grow up with astronaut dreams. Back then, the job was simply not available. When she was born in May of 1951, the United States space program was a men's club, a white men's club, restricted to fighter pilots and military men. The few women who did apply, and keep in mind, we had a lot of very qualified women pilots in those days, in the early 50s, middle 50s, out of World War II and the work that they had done. But all of these talented women were summarily rejected. Women were considered too weak, too unscientific, too, well, womanly to fly in the space program. One newspaper editorialized that a female in the cockpit would be, and I quote, a nagging backseat rocket driver. Thank you very much. Good gasp. Another newspaper columnist ridiculed the prospect of women as astronauts by calling them astronettes. Sally Ride loved science as a kid, but her interest in NASA was simply as a spectator. Like most kids from that era, and certainly some of you, she watched those early space liftoffs when the teacher wheeled in a big black and white TV set with rabbit ears into the classroom and watched John Glenn and everybody else take off. As a child, Sally Ride also learned how to play tennis, and she was so accomplished, so good on the junior circuit and on the women's circuit that she considered turning pro. In fact, she dropped out of college for a few months to give it a try, but when she realized she was never going to be one of the elite, and that's all that Sally Ride would have ever settled for, she decided that was not the place she needed to be. Years later, when she would be asked what it was that had stopped her from a tennis career, Sally always said wistfully, "My forehand." But it never stopped her forward progress. When tennis didn't work out, she pivoted right back into science, went up to Stanford University for her undergraduate and her master's and her doctorate in astrophysics. I should also point out this, well, let's say she was not an underachiever. She was a double English and astrophysics major when she was an undergraduate. In fact, Sally was in the midst of writing her postgraduate school applications one morning in 1977, January 1977, when she wakes up in the morning. She goes to the Stanford Student Union to get a coffee and a sweet roll to try to wake up before class. She picks up the Stanford Daily and never gets beyond the front page. The headline was just above the fold, and it read, "NASA to recruit women." Sally's future had just dropped in her lap.